Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar, Save Time and Money with Automated Business Process Documents. I'm Mark Beebe, Marketing Campaign Manager for WorkSoft and your host for today's session. First, a couple of logistical points. We have a large number of people on the call today, so the lines will be muted. But we will take questions toward the end of this 30-minute broadcast. Please use the question feature to submit questions at any time during the webinar. For questions we can't get to during the Q&A session, we'll be sure to get back to you with an email reply. We will also make a link to the recording of this webinar available for registrants who are unable to make it, or perhaps for colleagues you think might benefit from the material. Let me now introduce our speaker. We are privileged to have Jim Duggar with us today. Jim is WorkSoft's Director of Technology Analytics. Over the past 20 years, he has served in a wide variety of engineering, sales, and marketing roles for some of the world's most influential and successful software companies. As a well-recognized leader in his field, he is regularly a featured speaker at industry conferences including SAP TechEd, SAP Sapphire, the Gartner Symposium, and other major events. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Jim.
Well, good morning, everyone. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is business process documentation and how to get there a little faster, well, a lot faster, with a lot less effort, and make our lives a little bit easier as business analysts. So to start the conversation off, I like to tell a little story about my experience in business process consulting. I used to do something that we would call a time and motion study. And to do that, you would literally watch people work in the organization. You would understand how they depend on the applications that they got work done with. You might take pictures of their screens and so on. And you'd spend all of that information, all that time collecting to create the business process diagrams that you need, the detailed business process documentation of how to execute those business processes. And of course, those documents were used for training, they were used for compliance, they were used for all kinds of different things, and ultimately business process optimization as part of that consulting engagement. And we would do this entirely manually. And I'll bet that for the business analysts on the phone today, someone already has their calendar full of a schedule of Snagit and Microsoft Word to do this kind of activity. So how could we get to that kind of an experience? How could we get all of this business process discovery and all this documentation written and have it done for us and get the documents kept evergreen automatically? And how could we do it without this exercise, which is that traditional time and motion study? So we're going to spend most of today's webinar actually looking at a live demo and using the WorkSoft Analyze product to solve this very problem and create high-quality business process documentation with relatively little effort on the behalf of ourselves. So to get right into it, we're going to look at three different things in order to get to business process documentation. The first part of it, of course, is discovery and simply understanding what are the business processes. How do people depend on these underlying applications? What are the workflows that they use? And one of the things that's going to be unique about today's presentation is we won't require a single individual to know the entire end-to-end process. It can be multi-actor, it can be multi-departmental, and the system will help us put that information together. Once we've done our discovery, then it's a matter of simply identifying the business processes of interest. Perhaps that's by priority, or perhaps that's by frequency, or other metric that's interesting to us as an organization to identify where we need good quality documentation. And then we'll simply generate active business process documentation with every step the end user took, how they interacted with the application, even if it's multi-act or multi-departmental. So this is exactly what we're going to see in today's demonstration, and I'm going to spend most of the time that we get to chat today doing exactly that. So let's go take a look. We're using live product now. This is WorkSoft Analyze, and I have pulled up some examples from Sapphire actually here recently. We were at the SAP Sapphire event and of course giving demonstrations of our products including WorkSoft Analyze, WorkSoft Certify, WorkSoft Impact, and so on. In the course of demonstrating WorkSoft products, we had our engineers performing various SAP transactions and various web transactions, and we're starting to see the system automatically document and workflow all of those different performances of business process performed by our end users. For example, we can see a VA01 or a create order here. that David Kelly, one of our field engineers, did. And then maybe down here we'll see something, a create order or an update delivery, that a combination of David Kelly and Chris Krause, our product manager, also performed during the course of demonstrations. And the thing that I want to stress here is that this was done completely automatically by the system. No one had to sit down and document business process. No one had to take any special actions. They just did their ordinary normal tasks in SAP, and the system automatically figured out all of these different workflows, automatically figured out the different ways that end users depend on the application, and created this diagram for us here. So that's really interesting. But then how do we turn this into something that can be an evergreen representation of how that business process was performed? What are the actions necessary to recreate it? So that's also pretty easy. Let's take a look at one of these variants here. Variant number 2 creates an order, does an update to a delivery of the LO1N, and then creates an invoice of VFO1. So for each of these different transactions that were performed in SAP, we'll be able to automatically create documentation for them. Let's look at how we do that. In Worksoft Analyze, once you've selected a discovered business process variant, you can simply choose Create Documentation, and the system will automatically create the business process documentation for you. So I'm going to call this Order to Cash number 3. And off we go, and the system's doing the work for us. Now, if I go look at my documents here, I have several different documents, a couple that I created yesterday. Well, there's our Order to Cash number 3. So let's go take a look at that. The system downloaded it for me and automatically has created a PDF document, and these can be created in PDF or Word, with every single interaction the end user took, all the T-codes the end user performed, and all of the detail of how they actually performed that end-to-end business process. This is done, again, completely automatically by the system. And in order to get an update to this document, if I have fresher or newer information, I simply need to perform the business process again normally, and the system will automatically update these records with all the performances and details of every individual who's contributed business process knowledge to this overall map. And again, very automatic and Analyze. When we designed Worksoft Analyze, we wanted a solution that helped our customer understand how work really got done in the enterprise, and then leverage that information not only for creating automation, obviously testing is a core business of ours, but also helped our business analysts understand business process and how it affects the enterprise. For example, if I'm interested in documenting the happy path, maybe I look at something like capture count to help the system help me identify what the most common flow is through all these different discovered business processes. Or maybe I look for data that helps me optimize it and then select those for documentation, as that may be the most interesting business process variant for further study. So when I show these capabilities of Analyze, probably the most common question I get is, where did you get that data? And how easy is it going to be for me to be able to do exactly what I've just seen? So I don't normally show the whole life cycle of creating business process documentation. But for today, I think I'm going to, because it will help us see exactly what's involved in getting from a blank screen to a comprehensive understanding of business process. So let's go do that. Not that screen, but this screen. Hopefully this looks relatively familiar to those on the line. A little bit of SAP GUI here. And I'm going to put on my sales hat, and I'm going to be Sally in sales right now. And Sally in sales is going to show us how she performs a sales order. So because we want Sally to contribute, we're going to ask Sally to use capture technology and simply begin capture. And now that capture is running, Sally can go do her job normally, and the system will do all the work from there. So it would be un-American if we didn't use VAO1 on an SAP demo. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to do an order. We're going to sell it to 3001. We're going to do some material type P100 and so on. I'll go ahead and save that there. Clearly, I have to select a couple of other items. Sally doesn't really know how to use SAP very well, and we're observing that right now. So we can see the error messages and so on. that won't stop us from making an illustration of what we're trying to do here, which is simply understand how Sally gets her job done. So let's just pretend that she's completed her order and done all of that nice work. Sally simply says end capture, and her experience and her interaction with SAP will automatically be uploaded to Worksoft Analyze. Now likewise, we might have Willie over in the warehouse that wants to be able to do something, and he wants to show us how he gets his work done as well. So we'll go back to our welcome screen here, and we'll pretend that we are Willie now. And again, the same action. He simply uses capture whenever he's going to do something of interest. Uses SAP. This looks good here. Number 3. Let's go ahead and do that. Interacts with the application normally. The order is incomplete, yada, yada, yada. You guys get the drift from here. And when Willie is done, he simply does an end capture. So this is all that we ever ask of our end users in order to contribute business process knowledge to Worksoft Analyze. They need only do their normal everyday activities, use capture, and will automatically and take in and understand exactly how they depend on and use SAP and other web applications. So let's go back to Worksoft Analyze and let's take a look at what we've just done and see it in real time. So I'm going to switch workspaces here, and I created one this morning that has a picture of what I'm doing today. So what I'm looking at here are all my captures. I'll go ahead and bring this up, and the ones that have been performed today. And when I go to my workspace, we'll see that we have quite a few different performances. Well, as it turns out, I'm using our demo environment, and so if we come look at some of these other things that have been done this morning, we can see where David Hart, one of our other engineers, did a little bit of Salesforce demonstration and did some capture for documentation's sake there. And let's see here, we've got some other work that's been done this morning. David Hart also demonstrated a little more SAP there. Let's see here. This VAO, and this is always fun just to see what's going on in the demo environment. One of our Indian consultants overseas was working with SAP this morning. So we got lots of great data that's been going on this morning. And of course, the captures that I have just created are here as well. And I'll show you how to find those in just a second. So what I want to do next is I want to take a look at these business processes that have been captured, and I want to either connect them or manipulate them or turn them into that understanding of end-to-end process that will be useful for documentation's sake. So let's find the one that I just did. There it is, okay? So let's take that, and let's say that Jim Duggar is not a very good SAP user. He does things that are really strange. Like what he likes to do is not only do an order and a delivery, then turn around and do another order and do another delivery. He's not very efficient. So for just humor and proof of point's sake, I'm going to go ahead and string those together using a feature called Connect Activities. And now we have defined what we call a composite business activity or composite business process in Worksoft Analyze, where even though multiple different users were involved in the total performance of the end-to-end business process, I was simply able to string those together and show Worksoft Analyze how to treat them as if they were a single unified business process. And all the features of Analyze will now work, of course, across that, including business process documentation. So I've selected variant number 11, which is our new composite variant that has the full order delivery, and I will come up here and create documentation. Go ahead and let that run, and here in a second when we come to my documents, it's running there for a second. It will actually create business process documentation automatically that has that full end-to-end experience that's been performed even across actors, across individuals, across activities, and so on. We could have linked also maybe some of the examples from Salesforce in here and generated this same kind of output. So the takeaway here for someone that's been spending their time doing business process discovery, that someone's been spending their time doing time and motion studies, and then of course using traditional methods like Microsoft Word and screen capture to create this high quality, high resolution business process documentation. we have a way to make it much easier for you and take that monotonous work that you've been doing at the desktop with Control Print Screen and Microsoft Paint and tools like this and make your life a little bit better. So that's the demo I wanted to show you. I'm going to go back and talk about a couple of key best practices that will make this job even easier for you as you look forward. So who's involved in really good quality business process documentation? Well, of course, the business analyst is. They're ultimately the one that's responsible for cataloging and understanding business process in the organization, helping the organization optimize, document, train, do whatever's necessary with that intrinsic knowledge that belongs to the organization about how work gets done. And that's really the key user here. But I want to focus a lot on the activity expert, which is where we get our knowledge. I know from my own days in business process consulting that interviews are very valuable, watching people is very valuable, but it's the candid experience that lets you really understand how business process gets done. People doing their everyday tasks, just getting work done, getting it done as effectively as they know how, that will always be a different perspective than what you get when you sit them in a conference room for 8 hours and make them tell you about how they get jobs done. So one of the neat things about WorkSoft Analyze, and hopefully you took this away watching the Capture utility, is that you can give it to each of your activity experts. You know, our community of business analysts who are entrusted with collecting and cataloging this knowledge of business process don't need to also be activity experts in every single aspect of the business process. We can get that knowledge from the people that do it best every day in our organization, but we can still achieve our goal of providing an understanding of all the different variations and all the different performances of business process to the organization. So I will really encourage you when using WorkSoft Analyze to engage these activity experts, these individuals that do those jobs day in, day out, because as we also saw in the demonstration, Analyze helps us bring all this knowledge together from across the organization and treat it as if it were cohesive content, even though we may have collected it from a number of different individuals. And then finally, there's lots of consumers for business process information. And so everyone involved has a vested interest in really high quality information. Maybe it's our training department that teaches new hires how to do things like onboarding customers or creating opportunities. Maybe it's our help desk. Maybe it's our compliance office. These are different parts of the organization that can benefit from this knowledge and will benefit from your ability to create it more frequently and keep it more evergreen and current. So some of the best practices then, use Capture broadly. The more people you have contributing knowledge to business process, the better off your data will be. This is a strange land where aggregate is the accurate answer, where when we look at things in average across all the different performances from a variety of different people, that's where we get true understanding. So the more you capture, the better off you are. Don't worry about excessive capturing either. It's okay if you, quote, get errors. Errors are sometimes the most valuable pieces of knowledge you'll find. But also Analyze will automatically consolidate all the duplicates. So even if you have 10 end users perform the business process 10 identical same ways, Analyze will figure that out and consolidate that for you. So you'll never have too much mess to deal with. And then, of course, the more diverse you can distribute the collection around, the better off you'll be. You'll get a better picture of exactly what business process is and how it's performed. Now, we didn't take a detailed look at a lot of the capabilities of WorkSoft Analyze to filter and help you construct your viewpoint, but you'll be able to filter by line of business, project area, timeline, individual, activities, you name it. We have a very sophisticated way for you to be able to scope down the business process knowledge that you've collected into an area of interest for a given study or for a given opportunity. So again, I'll encourage you to collect as much data as possible because there's no consequence to doing that with WorkSoft Analyze. The system will help you manage it. And then, of course, as we saw with document generation, do this frequently and as often as you want. There is absolutely no penalty to logging in even every hour and creating the freshest version of any captured document that your end users have provided you knowledge for or any other variant that you've seen before. So go for it. The solution is designed to be lightweight and easy for you to use and generate documents as frequently as you need them. All right. So this was short and sweet, took a look at one specific capability, but hopefully it was helpful to you in terms of understanding a faster and easier way to get business process knowledge and business process documents generated. And I think we're going to open it up for some questions if there's anyone online that has further inquiry.
Great, thank you, Jim. And now we'll move on to your questions. Again, as a reminder, you can submit those questions at any time using the question feature in the GoToWebinar panel. Our first question, do you support editable formats?
We do. That's a very good question. And in fact, when you're generating your documentation, going back to the live product here, we support both PDF, which of course is static, and the Microsoft Word format, which of course is editable.
Okay. Our next question, we have Certify, but we don't have Analyze right now. Does this technology work with Certify?
It does. So when you're talking about Certify, of course, the question becomes what should be tested and how should it be tested? And so WorkSoft Analyze is also designed to go collect those requirements and that understanding of how your end users depend on these applications so that you can create very high quality testing assets. And just like we have the ability to create documentation, we also have the ability to create automation. And the automation will be a certified process. So, and I know we have another webinar on this, so I won't go into a lot of detail about it, but the basics are, just like we've seen multiple different parties contribute knowledge to business process and then string them together, I can come in and select one of these variants, come up here, say create automation, and it will make that end-to-end process available in Certify for consumption with all the steps, all the objects it's interacted with, and everything else. So, you know, if you're in the QA side of the house or on the automation side of the house, and one of your challenges is, hey, I could really use something that helps me automate the understanding of what should be tested, well, WorkSoft Analyze is a good answer for that as well.
Okay, and we do have time for one or two more questions. If you have one, you can submit it now. Our next question, can you use these features in a Salesforce environment?
Yes, in fact, we were looking at some examples of that today, right? Mr. Hart this morning, thank you very much, David, was actually giving a demonstration of the product in Salesforce. And so here he did a create new opportunity that he had captured. And in fact, we can take that and let's have some real fun with it. Let's create an opportunity and then use SAP to deliver it. When I use the product correctly, it makes a tremendous difference in outcomes. Okay, come on. It's okay, Jim. All right, so now we have our Salesforce create opportunity and our SAP delivery. So we'll go ahead and select that variant. We'll generate that documentation. And here in just a moment, when we go to My Documents, give it one more try here. We'll be able to see live documentation of someone logging into Salesforce, creating an opportunity. And of course, the data is going to be non sequitur because these weren't a connected order. But then after the Salesforce component, we will have the SAP component live and in the document and treat it as if it were an end-to-end process performed. So absolutely, that's a great question.
Okay, our next question, can we customize the PDF report like how we do in BPP?
Not yet, but that is a great question as well. The technology we use in WorkSoft Analyze is very similar to BPP, and that is in the product plan. Okay,
we have time for one final question. Notice the headers up at the top and the purple and orange. What do those do?
Yeah, so these are what we call our heat map overlays, and this is a fundamental feature of WorkSoft Analyze. WorkSoft Analyze will allow you to overlay data either from Analyze itself or from other systems and do so in the context of business process. So right now on the purple pill, I have selected my think time. And so we can see then in this visualization, everywhere there is a longer blue or purple bar, it has taken relatively, or no, and we're doing capture count, so it has been performed more times. And so this is very easy to observe. If I bring up the details on one of these, we can see that this one was performed just once. And if I bring up the details on this one has been performed, well, also just once, but the reason why there's more here is because we have some synthetic flows through. So it turned out to be a bad example because we've been creating synthetic business flows, so the system has automatically incremented the number of executions to account for the synthetic flows. But you'll get the idea. It's basically just capture count here, ultimately, that's being done. Now, I can take that second one, the orange one, and lay over another metric with it. So let's take a look at think time. This is a really common analysis. Show me the frequency of execution in my business processes, along with how long it takes my end users to perform it. So in this particular example, what we would be looking for is anything with both a large blue bar and a large orange bar, because those would indicate very frequently performed activities and that were very slow for our end users to perform. And so this little system here lets you lay over really kind of any data that you can imagine. In fact, since we've got a minute, let me go ahead and bring up the workspace that we were in just a second ago, and I've got some more detailed information there. Going back to those business processes that we were looking at from Sapphire, we can see here where we have one particular variant that has relatively high execution and relatively low think time. Not only is it our happy path, it also turns out to be one of the better performers. But then as we look at all these different order types out here, we're seeing different performances of create order that were relatively expensive for our human users. So from a business process standpoint, I would want to look at that and say, why do I have these outliers? Why do I have these variances? Is this something I can consolidate into the standard process? Because clearly it's much more performant if I'll use the standard process. So that comes from an analytics side. But maybe I want to look at something like test coverage. So the other thing that we can do here is compare your existing certified database of tests to the way that your end users actually perform real business process, and answer the question, do I have a test that really covers the way my end users depend on it? And so now what I'm looking at is everywhere my real users did something that I do and do not have a test for. Again, going back to that happy path variant, this should be a huge red flag. VLO1N has no corresponding test. So my end users are actually using SAP in a way that I don't have a test case for, and this would be something that I'd want to invest in automation very, very soon as a result. So hopefully that answers your question about what you can do with these. They're really quite flexible, and it's one of the key capabilities of Worksoft Analyze.
Great. Thank you, Jim, and thank you to everyone for attending. If we weren't able to get to your question, we will be in touch with more information. And as mentioned earlier, we will be sending you a link to a recording of this webinar. And if you're interested in learning more about Worksoft, please visit our website. Thank you for your time today. This concludes the webinar. Have a great day.